Tensions rise over the Black Sea after a Russian jet collides with an American surveillance drone, causing U.S. forces to bring the drone down in international waters. China and Russia slammed the latest AUKUS submarine pact, accusing Washington, Canberra and London of adopting a Cold War mentality and risking regional stability and peace.
Brussels wants to give consumers the right to choose a long-term energy contract at a fixed price, as it looks to help people deal with the energy crisis.
The U.S. military says a Russian jet collided with an American surveillance drone over the Black Sea, causing U.S. forces to bring the device down in international waters. In a statement, the U.S. European Command said 2 Russian Su fighter jets, quote, conducted an unsafe and unprofessional intercept of an American drone that was operating within the international airspace over the Black Sea. Russian and U.S. aircraft have operated in the area during the course of the Ukraine war, but this is the first known such interaction, a potentially dangerous escalation at a critical time in the fighting.
The center of Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine was the target of fresh Russian bombings on Tuesday. In an all too familiar scene, residential buildings were hit. At least 1 person was killed and several others injured. According to local authorities, the Russian strikes damaged 9 apartment blocks and a children's preschool. Kramatorsk has been a significant battleground since 2014, when pro-Russian forces occupied Donetsk before being driven out in July 2014, bringing the city back under Ukrainian control. These attacks come as Sergei Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, ordered the doubling of the production of precision-guided weapons during a visit to one of Russia's leading arms manufacturers. In the east, Ukrainian forces on the front line continue to be pounded by Russian artillery. On Tuesday, the Ukrainian Interior Ministry said Russian forces launched deadly rocket strikes against civilian infrastructure in Sumy and the Donetsk region.
Moscow said it does not recognize the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Now, this statement came in even before the ICC prosecutor formally announced the opening of the 2 war crimes cases and issuing arrest warrants for several Russians deemed responsible for the targeting of Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and the mass abduction of Ukrainian children. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Reintegration of Temporarily Occupied Territories Irina Vereshchuk confirmed that Russia has illegally deported more than 2,260 Ukrainian orphans to Russia. The Ukrainian government previously verified the illegal deportation of a total of more than 16,200 children to Russia, including those deported alongside their families. Now, the Russian government doesn't deny taking Ukrainian children and has made their adoption by Russian families a centerpiece of propaganda. The Institute for the Study of War previously reported on a Russian documentary series following Ukrainian children after what Moscow calls adoption into Russian families. The estimated total of illegally deported Ukrainian children may be closer to 150,000. Now, the Institute for the Study of War continues to assess that the forcible deportation and adoption of Ukrainian children is a violation of the Geneva Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide and a potential constituent element of a wider ethnic cleansing campaign.
The Russian lower house has approved an amendment, which, if approved by the upper house and President Putin, will punish anyone who publishes false information or attempts to discredit the volunteer groups fighting in Ukraine with up to 15 years in prison. This is an extension of the laws passed by the Russian government a year ago, which sought to suppress any criticism of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine. Yevgeny Prigozhin, leader of the mercenary group Wagner, welcomes the news, having asked the Russian parliament in January to extend the laws to ban negative media reports about his men. Up until now, it was only Russia's military that was protected. This comes on the same day that the Lithuanian parliament declared Wagner a terrorist group. In its resolution, it states that Russian mercenaries have committed serious crimes, which amounts to terrorism. Wagner has played an important role in Russia's offensive. But the Battle of Bakhmut has revealed tensions between the group's leadership and the Russian army.
China and Russia have warned that the submarine pact between the US, the UK and Australia paves the way for future conflict. Beijing's foreign ministry accused the three powers of returning to a Cold War stance, while Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov said the West was fueling tensions in Asia. The AUKUS deal is the latest in a series of developments that have heightened tensions between the West with both China and Russia. Countries have deepened relations in recent months, with Washington warning that Beijing may soon provide arms to Moscow as it continues its war in Ukraine.
Amnesty International published a new report on Tuesday, in which it denounced the increasingly widespread use of riot weapons, such as rubber and plastic bullets, by police around the world. Amnesty has joined up with 30 other organisations to call for the signing of an international treaty against the use of what it calls instruments of torture. In the report, Amnesty International's Patrick Wilkins said the manufacture and trade of weapons, known as kinetic impact projectiles, rubber and plastic bullets, need to be controlled to combat what he called an escalating cycle of abuse. The report is the result of 5 years of research in tens of countries and reveals that thousands of protesters and bystanders have been injured and dozens killed as a result of the use of these weapons. In France, for example, nearly 2,500 protesters were injured at the height of the Yellow Vest protests. 440 eye injuries have been recorded in Chile since protests against inequality began in 2019. But Amnesty International says the real numbers are probably much higher.
The overhaul of the EU's electricity market will have to wait. Plans to restructure it in the wake of the energy crisis are on hold for now. Instead, the European Commission is opting to revise the existing rules to reduce price volatility. The main idea is to protect consumers by introducing the right to choose a long-term contract with a fixed price. People could also have multiple contracts.
Consumers should also have a right to opt for less risky options. That means fixed price contracts, and this is the part of the proposal. On top of that, we will argue that consumers should have a right for several contracts so that they can, for example, cover their consumption with fixed price, but charge their electric vehicle at these hours when prices are low based on flexible contract.
With this proposal, the European Commission is ignoring calls by some EU countries like France and Spain that want to separate gas and electricity prices, which are currently coupled together. The aim of this is to avoid the high prices of fossil fuels, as seen during last year's market disruption. Some socialist MEPs think the proposal is a step in the right direction, but doesn't go far enough.
Creo que podemos ser más ambiciosos, mejorarla, trabajando conjuntamente y hacer unas propuestas que vayan en la dirección correcta a la hora de dar una señal muy importante, y es que las renovables deben ser las que acaben marcando el precio en el futuro a la Unión Europea, el precio de la electricidad, pero además que esas renovables reciban una remuneración suficiente que las haga rentables y que permita seguir invirtiendo en ellas.
The Commission's proposal also wants to see further investment in renewables as part of its push to reduce dependency on Russian gas. Controversially, the nuclear energy sector is put forward as a pathway to a greener future. A heated debate is expected among EU countries before the proposals are signed off, something that is likely to happen at the end of this year or the beginning of next.
Facebook's parent company Meta has announced it will cut 10,000 jobs this year as part of a wider restructuring plan. It's the tech company's second round of mass layoffs after it saw a 4% slump in profits in 2022. Executive Chairman Mark Zuckerberg said that last year had been a humbling wake-up call for Meta, pointing to a number of factors including rising interest rates and increased regulation. Following the announcement of the layoffs, Meta shares jumped by 6%.
500 days on the scoreboard and a lot of things to do. France has started the countdown to the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Speaking at the capital's police headquarters on Tuesday, President Emmanuel Macron called on everyone involved to do their best to make the event a success.
Être à l'heure et dans l'excellence en termes de réalisation. Mais c'est pas parce qu'on est bon aujourd'hui qu'il faut relâcher quoi que ce soit. Les 500 jours à venir, on doit mettre une pression maximale pour avoir des jeux qui seront vos jeux. Je compte sur vous. Merci du boulot fait, mais ne lâchez rien pour les 500 jours à venir. Il nous reste énormément à faire. Vive la République et vive la France.
Macron acknowledged there are some areas where improvement is needed. One of them, getting Paris residents, who the president says are still showing a certain indifference, more involved.